Hello, welcome back. My name's Daniel Gormally. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to look at a game that I played against Malcolm Pein. So Malcolm is one of the most well-known figures in English chess, and obviously he's an IM, International Master. But rather than going down a route of being a professional player, Malcolm decided to start a business. He's a very hard worker, one of the hardest working people in chess, I would say. And he started a business called Chess and Bridge. And that was very successful. In fact, one of the first tournaments I played, one of the first sort of like international tournaments I played, was organised by Chris Dunworth. And it took place in the old Chess and Bridge shop, which was in Euston. And near Great Portland Street Station as well. Great Portland Street, sorry. And I played some good players in that. I think Keith Arker won it with 8 out of 9. I lost to Keith, blundered a rook under pressure. But yeah, there was some people, quite familiar people that were working there. Also, like Alexis Arakis was working there for some period. James Coleman, also Chris Duncan as well, and obviously Malcolm himself. He also had a Scottish chess player called, got his name now, Alan something. And so sometimes famous chess players would, or quite wealthy chess players would possibly contact the shop, because it was like the main shop in London, really, main chess shop in London. They say, look, I'm interested in coaching. So one time, this Scottish guy, Alan, he went to this guy's, Alan Norris, sorry, I think. Is that right? Oh, my memory's so terrible. I can't even remember people's names, right? This is going back 20 odd years. This is more than 20 years ago, this story. And he turns up at this director's house. We didn't know who the guy was, because he's not like, he's not into celebrities much. And he was coaching this guy, and then Madonna walks in the room. It's like, what? She's pregnant as well, right? With Guy Ritchie's baby. So that's when he obviously realised that this guy's quite well known. So, obviously knew who Madonna was. Anyway, so I was playing Malcolm in the 4NCL. He's obviously a good player. And, if I would say Malcolm was well known for not having great nerves, but I think it's more a case of he probably lacks self-belief in himself. So he's quite a ruthless person in some ways, in real life, I would say, like a lot of us. But when it comes to chessboard, that's probably his main weakness. He's not ruthless enough. So that kind of ruthlessness he had in business, possibly, or in real life, is not carried through to the chessboard, I would say. So it's possibly his main weakness. His son also plays. He's also a very good player called Jonathan. And we're going to have a look at this game. It's quite an interesting game. So, rook e1. Yeah, and obviously this move, I'm expecting Malcolm to possibly play the Marshall attack, which is a lot of theory. So, not particularly happy. Now, I remember, obviously, Malcolm was covering this match, was the famous, one of the things that I started getting into chess, was the famous Kasparov short match. But Kasparov would generally avoid the Marshall by playing the move a4. However, after the move a4, you can also play d5 there, so this is a speciality of Dubov's. Playable, maybe not the best, but I think the best move to avoid it, I mean, h3 is also possible, but the best move to avoid it is possibly the move I played, which was d3, because now d5 is not very good. I mean, you can still play it, but white is very comfortable, having already played d3, which means the bishop can come out. The knight is very quick to come out to d2 or c3. Queen can come out to f3, so that's not a very good pawn sacrifice. So Malcolm played bishop e7. Now when a4, so we transpose back into this main line. Main line with a4. And a knight bd2 would be like this Kasparov short game. I believe Kasparov won one of these games. I'm not sure if he won all of them, but he certainly won one game against Schultz setup. And I believe he at some point he went knight h4, knight g6, won the bishop pair. That might have even been the first game, right, of that match. Obviously, Malcolm would remember that because he's got a very good memory, you see, as we'll see later. So, but I went knight c3, and I couldn't really remember. You know, I hadn't looked at this for a while. Never really looked at it in real great detail. It's probably one of my weaknesses is my lack of, really serious opening repertoire. Or I know some openings quite well, and some sketchily, and none to like an really thorough extent like a top chess player would. So I went here anyway. Yeah, I think knight d5, Malcolm was saying that black could just go c5. And that was a good move. I mean, I thought he could even potentially maybe take. I was also concerned about this. And c6. Malcolm said that after knight e2, so he went c5. So he said knight g3 was, and all he remembered was 13 bishop c8. So it's amazing that he remembered this from 20 years ago, that there was 13 bishop c8. He remembered this at the board. And apparently this is not that good. So I was worried about this move with the idea of trying to freeze in this bishop. Either get great compensation in this position with a bishop pair. Although you could still play this for white, it's hardly tragic. I mean, what does the engine say here? Probably says white's slightly better, right? This is all theory, but apparently I think in this position you take with a pawn. And after knight c6 you go b4. This is what Malcolm mentioned. Although actually the engine is not loving this for white. So maybe you do just take with a bishop. So that's why, anyway, I was a little bit concerned about this move b3, so that's why I went bishop d2. And, yeah, so my idea was if black goes b3 now, I take. And I take, so I merge it pulled up. However, Malcolm played a good move. He went knight c6, which slightly surprised me. I thought the knight was well placed at a5, but he's basically like bishop d2. What does that do? That doesn't really do anything. So I went knight g3. That's more logical. Bishop c8 was a good move. Yeah, so I went c3. It was not terrible, and rook b8 was played. So this is like a very tricky position, and I thought for a long time it still didn't play the best move. So it's a typical position you can get in a Ruy Lopez in a way, but obviously like a good version for black of a Ruy Lopez, I would say. Often in the Ruy Lopez you play rook e8 and bishop f8. One thing I would say is this opening is one of the few that I've studied probably to a great extent. So I do know I've seen a lot of games as white. I feel comfortable with the white position, generally speaking. Mainly because the king always seems a little bit safer. The white king always seems a little bit safer. I've had some tough battles with Mark Hebden over the years, who's an expert in the Ruy Lopez from the black side. So I've got quite a lot of experience in this opening. But I still came up with the wrong solution. So probably what I should do is just do something like this. And if he takes, take out the pawn, bishop e6. And just admit that I'm not better and just play, right? But instead, I mean, also can take out a bishop when he takes on c3. It's another option. Instead I went here, which is slightly inaccurate. Now, he should take. This is what I was expecting him to play. So, always, when you play chess, think about captures and checks. Obviously, Malcolm would have seen that move. He's a good player. He probably could have been a much stronger player, like I say. Great memory. Obviously, a lot of chess talent. Could have been a much stronger player if he'd have devoted his life just to playing chess rather than building a business. But obviously, it's more important to get some bread on the table. You've got a family to support rather than, you know, go down the whole chest bump route. So, anyway, go back to the game. Bishop c4 was not a good move. Not a good move, really. But, yeah, tricky decision. I think he should have taken. And I was expecting him to take. And then if I take out the bishop, well, it looks a little bit ugly. But apparently bishop takes is just as good as the other recapture. Because if I take here, I thought knight a5 was very good for black. And here, you could either just play bishop e6, you know, stick to your plan, which is pretty reasonable. Or another move that worried me was c4, a little bit like this b3 idea earlier. You just close it in this bishop, making this bishop a bad piece. Malcolm also mentioned move bishop d7, which is also perfectly reasonable. This pawn a4 is quite weak. But I feel like c4 might be quite good. And if I take, he's got queen c7, for example. Yeah, it's just a very comfortable position for black, so something's gone slightly wrong for white. Not terrible, but instead of that, yeah, Malcolm played this move, and I think the game kind of turned around at this point. So I took, and now I felt reasonably comfortable, not because I felt like I had a better position, I didn't think I had a better position, but just because at least my moves were fairly straightforward. Whereas before, they didn't seem that obvious what white should do, whereas now at least, yeah, my plan's fairly obvious. So starting with a5, so make that pawn weak. I'm just going to solidify with b3 to sort of cover this pawn. b3, yeah, so here black started going slightly wrong. I'm not sure if queen c7 was the best move, but it seemed fine. I was thinking that maybe he might consider this. This pawn is weak. I'm not sure if that was the best solution. Yeah, seems reasonable actually. Yeah, rook a4 is an issue though. This is a problem, yeah. Although the computer thinks you can actually give away a pawn and be okay. You've got enough pressure down the b file that you're not really in trouble. Yeah, I think, yeah, something like this maybe was the best solution. But you see that white is slightly better in all these variations, whereas before black was slightly better. So, yeah, I think black's missed the moment to some degree. Anyway, I'll show you what happened in the game. Now I felt reasonably comfortable. Bishop g5. I played. I was thinking about playing it earlier, like bishop g5, but then I thought, well, he might just go here. And, you know, do I want to take on f6? I'm not sure if I do. I think it makes the position fairly easy for black to play. I mean, there are ideas of going here, knight f1, knight e3, so you could argue the white's slightly better here. Like Malcolm said, it's a little bit like Sheznikov, very good point again, like I said, about the good memory. Because you memorise these positions, you use positions for other openings to kind of instruct you to what's going on in this position. I think, yeah, it was reasonably easy to play for white, but whether white's better, I'm not convinced. What's the engine saying here? Probably says equal, right? No, it does prefer white. Fair enough. Yeah, he's got some, because having the pawn here is very important, because it, like Malcolm said, I think in the post-war, if your pawn was at a2 and then a5, then black would obviously be doing quite well, I think, in these kind of positions, or it'd probably equal, but with a pawn here, it makes quite a big difference. Any endgame's going to be quite good for me. You have the pawn on d6 drops, and then you take on a6. But none of that happened. So I went h3. And now, yeah, queen b7 was a blunder. So I don't think this is very good for some reason. You can grab the pawn, but no, you can grab it, yeah, but black just would have compensation just by playing moves, right? Don't need to do anything crazy. But the problem is my next move, which I think Malcolm overlooked, knight f5. Now big problems for black. If you do this, I could just win a pawn possibly, but I might either just drop back. But certainly taking is something you would consider as well. And the other problem is if you play a move like here, there might just simply be a move like knight h2 might be quite dangerous. What was the engine saying? Yeah, this is very dangerous for black. It's already saying winning. Malcolm was saying king f8, but apparently this is not very good. But just f3, like you said, Gary's favourite move, Garry Kasparov. It would often play f3 in these right up as structures. So, all very unpleasant for black. Yeah, knight and f5 is a great piece, right? And he can't challenge it with bishop d7 because he just drops the bishop directly. So rook e8 was played, and now suddenly I'm winning. I'm winning the exchange. And so now it just becomes a question of technique, and I managed to do a reasonable job of for once. Went c5. I thought that was a good move actually, because I don't want him to set up some position where he's got a bishop on c5 ever. You know, queen on a7, queen goes to c5. I want to break any, stop any potential blockade before it even happens. If he goes there, I can just hit the pawn. So this is totally winning now. Rook d1. My idea was if he takes, I go here, and I suddenly start getting active. You can't go here because of rook c7. If you go here, then I thought, if nothing else, knight h4 should be very strong. But I was going to play here probably. Drive the queen back. It goes to b8, a6 is dropping. If it goes here, I can even just take here. Or play this move, knight h4 again. Probably I'm just going to go knight h4, just get rid of one of the bishop. The only danger for me here is this bishop pair. If I get rid of one of the bishops, it's a very easy win. So it went h6, so I went knight h4. Yeah, I think rook e6 was another try, but not really working. Yeah, this is where I nearly blundered, because I nearly went here with the idea that if he takes, well, I'll just go back. But then at the last moment, this is why I always check your variations, right? I suddenly realised, oh, actually bishop b5 is very embarrassing, because then he's just going to kick the queen away, and then he's going to take the knight. So fortunately, I stopped myself just in time, and I went rook d5, which was a good move, because here is obviously very, very bad for black. He's still pawn down, I think. 6 against 7, right? I've got 7 against his 6. But these pawns are just absolute monsters. Very simple win, I would imagine. So there's quite a nice resource that I've got, rook d5. You know, I think when you exchange up, it's very easy to go passive here as white. There's no need to go passive, just keep playing aggressively. You know, that's the best way to win the game. So I went rook d1. So I was very confident now that I'd win the game. If Malcolm take on a5, I could just take on e5. If Malcolm had taken on a5, I should have said. Yeah, so now I'm technically winning. If you take here, I just take out the rook. 2 pawns up. Quite a simple win. Also his king is probably weaker than mine as well. So he didn't play that variation. He played... now he took on a5, but now c6 is winning. And I think here was also winning maybe, but there's no need. So I just went knight d3, which is quite simple. And then I took. So my idea is if he takes, I go here. There's no way of stopping the pawn. So he played rook c6, and I could just take on b4, but I thought, yeah, he's got moves like rook c1. Okay, the king goes to h2, is still winning, but I thought, like, why bother? Just go rook c5. If he so Malcolm decided to resign at this point. But obviously, if he takes, I should be able to win this. Like A5, I could just go E5 and E6. Lots of different ways to win this. He's got no breakthrough over here because knight and pawn covers everything. So that was quite a nice win, you know, overall, other than the fact I went bishop c4. There's only one slight error in that game, which was playing bishop c4. The next game I played against Jonathan Arnott. It's a former European MEP. I'm not sure what party he represented. I think it was something like the Brexit party. So he was playing for, was it Celtic we were playing maybe that match? Oh no, I'm getting confused now. I'm forgetting who we played. Who did we play? We played against the Sam Chow's team. It might have been White Rose 2 actually. Yeah, I think White Rose 2. I think Malcolm was maybe the Celtics. But we were kind of like at the bottom of the table. Apart from the last match where I said I already showed that game where I played against Marcus. And yeah, so I'm black in this game. So I flip the board, show you the moves. So I followed this game that I had against David Eggleston. I was white in that game, so the first time I really had this line and knew about this line, I played against a game against David Eggleston in the British Championships. I'm not sure where that British Championships was, but in any case, yeah, in this position, David played the move b5 against me, and I was like, yeah, he played it very quickly. And David is typically well prepared with engines and stuff. You know, his preparation when he plays a lot of these tournaments like the British Championships is often very good because he's got plenty of time to prepare before the game. That's why he doesn't like playing 2 rounds a day, because he doesn't have as much time to prepare. I think he feels comfortable preparing. So I played the white side here. And I was like, oh, what's this move b5? You know, he's played that quite quickly. Surely the move e5 is, the first time you look at this position, the first move you're drawn to is e5 because it's going to chase the knight away. Knight doesn't seem to have a comfortable square, right? So you think e5 must be a good response. Surely you can't play this move b5. Surely a move like e5 is more logical, right? But when you check with the engine, it says that b5 is equal. Now, you can play moves. I've had this several times as black. I think I've pretty much won every game I've had. Or, you know, most of the games I've won, certainly a classical time controls, I won pretty much every game from black, with black from this position. I've had this several times. I've had it a couple of times at the Scarborough Congress actually. Also had it in the Northumbria Masters against a guy called Nasuta from Poland, who's now about like high 2500s. At the time I played him, he was like a 2460 IM, and I managed to beat him as well. So I've got a pretty good record with black in this position. But my opponent, Jonathan, did play the move e5. So you've got to take. And now you go knight g4. So now we get this position. So white has several moves here, but none of them lead to any advantage, as far as I'm aware. For example, the move bishop f4. That was a move I played against David. You know, so I'm seeing this for the first time. I went bishop f4, bishop b7. h3, bishop f3, queen f3, knight e5. This is how the game went. I went queen g3 against David, and after knight c6, I think I pretty much, maybe it's even still theory, right? Yeah, Gormally Eggleston. Probably I wimped out around about here. I went rook a d1, queen c8 was played. I went rook c1, knight f6, queen f3. Then we got a repetition, like a wimpy repetition, right? Okay, so that game ended in a draw, but as you can see, the engine is not giving white any advantage in this variation, because white is a pawn down. It's quite an important pawn as well as a central pawn. I do have the bishop pair and some pressure, but it's not enough to give white an advantage. So obviously, you're welcome to try and prepare this against me. You'll probably find an improvement for white. In this position, instead of bishop f4, which was probably the best move, or the most sensible move, you could also play the move e6, but then if you take, rook takes, there's knight e5, He can take here. You can probably win a pawn. But after this, the computer says that black is doing quite well. And for example, if you defend the pawn with bishop g2, there's this move b4, which is quite annoying for white. Because if the knight moves, there's rook b1. So probably you can't play bishop g2, which ideally you would like to play. So you might have played bishop e2 or some other kind of move instead. Black is fine in all variations. Yeah, and he can't really go here because of knight f2, for example. So there's all these issues. It looks very good for white, but you know, moves like this can be met with knight c5, for example. There's nothing that leads to any advantage. So my opponent blundered here with queen d5, and that was exactly what happened in a game that I had at Scarborough Congress going back a few years. There's a funny story behind that game as well, because I was travelling with Laura Barnes, Alex McFarlane to the tournament. They were kind enough to give me a lift. And I think Alex was a little bit reluctant to, as I discovered on one of the return backs. I think a couple of times I travelled a second time around. But I think it was a 2019 Scarborough Congress, something like that. But originally I was paired against Zoe Varney, and I sort of complained that I didn't want to play her or something because I'd done some coaching with her. And they changed the pairing. I kind of regret that. I shouldn't have complained. I should have just accepted I was going to play Zoe. But the guy I played, yeah, so Zoe obviously found out about that later and wasn't too happy. He had a chance to play against GM. But the guy I played in the first round played this move Queen d5. So in that game I wasn't sure, you know, I just knew that black had a good position here. So I tried to work out why Queen d5 wasn't a good move. And so I played him in Queen b6, which is exactly what I played against Arnott. And already black is a lot better. So you hit the pawn here. And the point is, if you take this is very bad for... sorry, you go here. You got to trap the queen. This is very bad. You don't have knight d5 here because the queen takes f2 check. And if you take, then I just take with a king. And my position is really good. You know, materially speaking, white is doing okay because you've got two rooks for a queen. But tactically speaking, not doing very well at all. Pawn on e5 is weak. All black's pieces are just doing great jobs. So there's various tries that white can do here. For example, one very nice variation is e6. I think this is what David Eggleston showed me after the game. Like queen f2 here. Then you go here. Now if you take, probably just move the king. Again, you can't really take with a knight because e1's hanging. If you take with a rook, f1 is hanging. So it's going to be forced checkmate. And the only other move, so it looks like white's got to move knight e4 here, but why doesn't knight e4 work? Again, you might want to pause your computer and think about what black would play here and what David Eggleston showed me after we drew in that game of the British. Very well prepared player David Eggleston obviously is. Yeah, so this position, what David showed me was that knight f3 was the move. Very nice idea. If you take here, it's a smothered mate. And if you take here, it's also mate. So this position is winning for black. So basically none of these tries work. Rook e2 is no good because I just do e6 like I did in the game. And again, you're going to get this trap queen problem. So you try bishop e3, Jonathan. So now I play e6. That's an excellent move, hitting the queen. You know, if I play me like rook b8 or rook a7, it's going to go e6 and the position is going to become very unclear. There's no need to allow e6. So it's important that you go e6 to get this structure with a weak pawn on e5. I've stopped his pawn. So here, yeah, I should have spent more time here and realised that queen c7 was very strong. I think I did look at queen c7, but I decided to go with king e7, which admittedly is not a bad move. It's still very good for black, but slightly better would have been to play queen c7. So Jonathan played rook there. I miscalculated here. I thought he could play this and then take take on f3, the idea is to take with a rook. Because if you take with a pawn, you just got a bad position, I think. I think black can go bishop d4, for example. No, rook d4, right? So why is that no good? Why can't you take with a pawn? Maybe it's just king f8 and black's a lot better or something like that. And if you take here, just take back and then... Yeah, you got a lot of weaknesses here. This is weak. Your king is weak. Is that right? Yeah. Maybe king f8 is not the best, but basically black is a lot better. But I miscalculated. I thought you could go here with the idea of here, forgetting that when he takes here, I'm taking here. So that was poor calculation on my part. But he never went knight e4 anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. He went rook d3, which is okay. And then he played a very good defensive move. So around about here I was thinking, I'm going to win this game fairly easily. You know, I've got the bishop pair. My king is much safer than the white king. But he played a great defensive move, bishop e2. I got the impression Jonathan was a pretty good player, to be honest. Bishop e2 was a good move. It's just a little bit unlucky to walk into a very good opening preparation by me for once, a rarity. So here I was trying to calculate the move b4, thinking that this is very strong. But then I was starting to realise that after here, queen c6, well, he can just go here immediately, but also he can go here. This is quite a clever move because this should be a theoretical draw because of the opposite colour bishops. I think this is a fairly easy draw, I would imagine. We could check with the engine seems it's only giving black a tiny edge. It's probably not enough to win the game with the opposite colour bishops. For example, if I go a5, he might even put the bishop on b5 to try and target a bishop e8 counterplay. But I don't think that's winning for black. And if I go, so probably here I would move the king, but then he goes bishop f3, and then takes here. Now who's better here? Maybe white's better because he's going to go rook d7. I certainly don't think that black is better here. So he's certainly got enough for a draw, I would say. You could carry that variation on, because actually now I'm noticing here I've got queen b1 check, and then after this you've got queen here. But finding all this stuff is hard. Even here it says it's equal. So b4 is a very committal move. Now what I should have done here was one of the moves. I started overthinking it here because once I realised b4, I went into a long thing. And once I realised b4 wasn't necessarily winning, you know, I was looking around. So looking around for other moves. So you identify your counter moves, and you know, what are your counter moves. So b4 was counter move, but I kind of dismissed b4 because it didn't quite work. So I was also looking at queen c7. Now rook d7 is obviously rook d7 is obviously a lost endgame, because then he's just a pawn down and he's facing the bishop pair, so that's can't be played by white. But you're attacking here. But I thought after h3 it wasn't so easy, but I think this was definitely the best. Apparently now you go b4. I actually think I saw this in the game as well, but I misjudged how good it was. It was much better than what I played. I started to give away the advantage here, which is very depressing. And I gave my opponent a chance to actually draw the game. It's very, very frustrating. I played bishop c6. This is where I was expecting him to go here originally, but then b4 is very strong, because here you're going to lose a pawn. Because there's no square for the knight which will cover the pawn on b2, so you're going to lose an extra pawn. And then this is why I went bishop c6. But what I'd underestimated was that he could go b4, and as soon as you play b4, actually as soon as I went bishop c6, I saw that he could go b4. I was like, oh, please don't go b4. It's like, it looks ugly because you're putting on a pawn on a square. Like he said, it's not ideal. He didn't want to go b4, but it's not ideal because you're putting the pawn on a square that could be attacked by the dark square bishop. But how do you attack it? Because you can't put the bishop on d6. Yeah, I mean, you can play moves at a5, he just goes a3. So b4 is an excellent move because it just concretely stops my move b4. So it's very frustrating when he played that. I started to think that the game was going to end in a draw, to be honest, when he went b4. Which wasn't going to be a terrible result, but just would have been very disappointing considering how well the opening went. And obviously he walked into my opening prep from before. So queen c7, yeah, I wasn't expecting to play this against Jonathan, but obviously I had that preparation from before. Queen c7 I played, but now it's a bit of a move late. Now he goes h3. I don't think moves like this quite work. Yeah, apparently you can just do this, and we looked at this variation, the post-mortem, but in fact he can even just start attacking the pawns, right? And then if I go f5, yeah, he's got enough there. Whether we would have found all this, I don't know. But I felt like bishop g2 was a very committal move. I didn't want to play that move, so I went check. Didn't feel comfortable. I thought about doing stuff like this, but it didn't look convincing. I was worried about knight e2, and then he starts coming to d4. So I went just solid. Right. In some positions, you start to realise, you know, you could lose your objectivity and end up being worse and losing the game. So I've had experiences like this, like positions like this. I think I've made quite a mature decision, which is just to give the check and then come back to the bishop to stop him playing rook c1. Because you can go gung-ho here. Like, you've lost your advantage. You've lost your advantage to some degree. You know, don't go nuts and ruin the game. And even lose the game. Because this is what I've been doing in the past. Actually, is there a way for me to be clearly better here? It is actually saying you should go for f5. Yeah, tricky though. I mean, it starts to become... Like, once if he goes here anyway. Ah... Right. Yeah, because it's actually quite important. Like this variation. Sorry, you take here first. It's quite important that I'm attacking this pawn. So this pawn is quite weak. So I'll show you what happened in the game. Because I went... yeah, because f5 maybe that more or less forces him to go bishop f3. Because what other move does he have? Yeah, I'm not good enough to find all that. I did see f5, but I didn't. I was actually expecting him to go to f1. Could he have gone to f1? Yeah, king f1 was better. Now if I go here, bishop f3 again. Yeah, I'm not better here. If I take, maybe he can take with a rook, or it takes with a pawn. Yeah. So I went check. I think king f1 was slightly better, but he went to h1, and this was where he made a very important error. And the funny thing was, during the game, I thought his next move was forced. You know, I didn't really consider the idea of him taking with a pawn myself. If I'd have thought about it, actually, I might have started to realise that pawn takes was, well, he was getting a little bit short of time. Pawn takes was actually a very strong idea, which I'd completely underestimated. Now, the important thing to consider here is the white king is actually, for the moment at least, fairly safe. Obviously, for the variations, if black would have managed to get the queen to h3 or h2, obviously that's a different story. But how do you get it there? Like, if the queen goes to f5, you can always go king g2. I think the problem is for white is in the game. I end up having this plan where I slowly push the pawns forward, which compresses his rooks, and he starts getting squeezed for space. With a pawn here, it's very important that I don't really have this plan of maybe pushing the g pawn forward or playing e5, e4 later on in the game. Obviously, e5 at the moment is going to drop the queen, but yeah, it looks automatic to take out a rook. It's very counterintuitive to take the pawn, but he should have taken the pawn, and the computer says it's close to equal now. So difference now is with the pawn on a5, that variation we were looking at before, you take there and you at least you have the b pawn as a target. Here I don't have the b pawn as a target, so I'm probably not going to win the game. I mean, what does the engine say? It actually just says it's already dead equal, yeah. So I've completely messed up. I should have played queen c7 earlier. It wasn't an easy win that I missed. And he defended it very well, but it's kind of frustrating. He took the rook. So now I kept grinding away. I went queen c4. That was a good move. And it's a very unpleasant position now for white. Surprisingly unpleasant. It's very amazing that the best way is to take with a pawn. Very surprising. To me, anyway. He went rook d3. And h5. So the position is completely different now, funny enough. Versus king is slightly less safe. I remember actually going years back. I was playing French league. This is going back. I played for a team called Nancy. And it was maybe the final league weekend. I remember I was sat there in the post-mortem room and Peter Fiddler was going over his game with a German player. And he mentioned some position where the pawn on f3, f2, h3. The white king is surprisingly safe. He mentioned that. And it always stuck in my mind, you know, the pawn on f3, f2, h3, you'd assume that the white king's very exposed. It shows a 2700 level understanding. They just know all these little details about chess that we don't know. So that always stuck in my mind, you know. So when I saw that g takes f3 move, that kind of reminded me of that. That the computer suggested g takes f3. So going back to g3 was played. And I went g5, which is quite, yeah, that was a good move. Now my plan is very straightforward. I'm threatening g4. His rooks are kind of basically tripping over each other. When I go g4, he goes to e3. I'm going to go bishop d4 and win the exchange. It's very hard for him to do anything about that plan. He has to kind of move the knight. But now I've played another good move, rook, queen c2. He's just gradually getting squeezed. I thought he might come back, but the problem is if he comes back I can just push, I think. And now I can even, maybe I can start thinking about going into this technical position. This is probably winning now, right? Yeah, completely winning. So he played a rook there. Again, think about the move. What did I play here? This is like the star move, right? I think this is the star move of the game for me. My next move. How did I really break through his defences? So it looks like he's defending here. He's attacking my bishop. Pause the video. Try and think what I played. Yeah, so I simply played here. Not bishop here because of knight d4. Threatening knight c6. Well, no, because I can't go queen f2 because knight c6. Right? Not threatening knight c6. Queen's covering it. But threatening, yeah, stopping me taking on f2. But what I played was simply bishop c7. Kind of a straightforward move. Not, I don't know if it's star move of the game, but yeah, basically it's quite nice how white can't seem to coordinate here. And he's just going to be losing material. All his pieces are kind of tripping over each other. So he went king g2. The problem is if he goes here, I go check. And now I go here. And I think he's in big trouble. Similar to the game. Similar reasons. He can't go here because of the because I take. Oh, can he go here now? Oh, but then f6. Yeah, it's just he just gradually gets squeezed. Like here, queen d5 is crushing. So he played king g2. I went there. He went knight d4, which is a decent try. Queen here. And I thought he'd actually just give up the exchange here and try and defend this position, but it's obviously completely lost. I mean, I'm just material up, and f6 is winning, followed by e5, for example. Yeah, f6 is crushing. You know, you just gradually, slowly move forward. And this is real, like, you know, torture for white. So He played the active move, which was knight f5. It's kind of actually I was kind of hoping for, because I thought I'd already worked out this was a tactical win. Whereas the other position, you at least have to think a bit, how you convert the material. Like, because now it basically, if he goes here, I go bishop c7, and then you win. So the threat here is not to take on e3, because that would allow mate. The threat is to take on f5. So he kind of has to do something with the knight. So he goes knight, and if he goes here, I go queen d5 check, and then take the knight. So he goes knight d6, but now check. Now again, if he moves the king, I can just take on e3. If he goes here, I go f5. If he goes here, I can either play f5, but I'll probably just take the rook first. And now I go f5, win the knight as well. So I'm already exchange up. There's already queen against knight, so I'm already material up, but now I'm going to win the knight as well, so he can resign. So he played rook f3, but then I went g4. Yeah, so you could take here, and then you're going to win this position eventually, I would imagine. Although it's not easy. Well, it probably is easy actually. I mean, as long as you just move the king, as long as you don't fall for a knight e5 and just move the king somewhere, you should win this 99 times out of 100, or 100 times out of 100. Just going to put the bishop on d4. Eventually, you'll probably win b2. He's got a little bit of a blockade, but it's probably not going to be enough to hold. But the key thing is, when you've got a winning position, don't let them escape. Don't even give them any chances to escape at all. And this is where I just really killed the game off. I just took the queen, and then I went here, and he resigned the game, because if he moves the king here, for example, I'm just going to go here, and if he comes across here, well, I'll probably take the pawn anyway. If he goes here though, just to show you, well, I mean, if he goes here, I can either take this pawn, which is winning. Now I've got a passed pawn, or bishop b2 is also winning, I think. But if he goes f4, then here, and something like this is not going to survive, I wouldn't imagine. There's various ways for black to win it. Well, bishop c1 is probably the simplest, and then just get the bishop out. King f6 is also winning. Pretty much almost every legal move, other than maybe a5 might not be the best way to try and win. But king f6, even e5 is potentially winning as well. Pretty much very simple way to win. So he resigned the game. So I had that shaky moment, technique wise, where I allowed him to get to a level position. If he'd found g takes f3 counterintuitive move, it's funny that neither of us saw that move in the game. Neither of us saw that during the post-mortem either, because it looked so natural to take out the rook. But that was a lucky, because he was fighting back quite well in that game. So that was the 2 games that I played. So I was on, going into that weekend, I was on -1. So I'd lost 2 games. Lost to Daniel Dorada, who's obviously a very good player, and I lost to Jose Camacho Colados. And I won 1 game against Rajat Makar, and all the other games have been draws. And so overall I think I did fairly well. I finished with +1, 6 out of 11. But I think next season, if I play again next season, I'll be looking for at least 7 out of 11. To me that score is not good enough. I should be doing better. And obviously I'm playing on a higher board, so that's not easy. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel, and for more chess educational content.